So the Buddha said this: if you wish to know the divine, feel the wind on your face and the warm sun on your hand. Isn't that beautiful? And that obviously speaks to that everyday spirituality, that we can be touched by the divine in such simple ways, and we don't even realize it. Everyday spirituality is about recognizing that everything we do, everything we experience, can absolutely be seen as spiritual. We don't have to just feel spiritual when we're here on Sunday morning, for instance, right? We can do that at all times as we live our truth, as we are out in the world and we're touching the lives of other people. One of the most beautiful aspects of spirituality is that it can be experienced differently by everyone. You can't do it wrong. And that is a beautiful gift in and of itself. That spirituality is about that personal connection with your higher self, with God, with Source, by realizing that there is a connection in your everyday activities, whether it's in washing dishes or doing laundry or taking a walk, practicing yoga or meditation or in nature, or even driving on the 91 or the 15 lately. Because that does take practicing the presence, doesn't it? So there's no right or wrong way to practice spirituality. It's simply about staying present, about experiencing that present moment awareness. Our life is really a moment-to-moment journey. We aren't trying to get anywhere. We're simply being and moving along that journey. And if we pay close attention, life is always showing us important lessons that we can learn from our daily life, from daily routine, be it from people or nature. Practicing the presence is that continuous practice of being consciously awake, not necessarily going through the routine in a rote way. How many times do you, okay, I'm going to give away some personal stuff here, right? But how many times do you have to think, oh, did I brush my teeth this morning? Because, well, right, because we do it so routinely, we forget. And I'll have to go back and check, right? It's not that big a deal. I was just an example, really. I always know when I do. It's about having the ultimate goal, realizing that the ultimate goal of life is living it as if it were one long prayer. Always being in that place of awe, that place of gratitude, that place of peace with whatever it is that's going on around you. Finding that peace in each individual moment while we're here on that planet. And the greater our peace, the easier it becomes to feel that presence. Have you noticed that? It's just a matter of getting to one or the other and experiencing more. It's the inner restlessness that is distracting us, not the outer activities. And I think sometimes we think it's the opposite, right? We think it's those outer activities. Often we forget that we are spiritual beings journeying this lifetime in physical form. It's when we come to understand that we truly are a spiritual being, with the knowing that all of our activities, washing dishes, playing the piano, meditation, connecting with our higher self, expressing love, expressing compassion. When we do those things, that's when we begin to have a true appreciation of being alive and being here right now. And that's when our daily problems and our challenges become easier. They become lighter for us because we're in that present moment. And I believe it was Eckhart Tolle that talks about, if you are completely present right here, right now, in the moment, then you have no problems, you have no issues. In this moment, everything is perfect. and all is well. When we can do that, we understand that all the things that we see as good or bad are simply moments, lessons on this journey that we're experiencing. And it's within those quiet and peaceful moments that we're opening our connection to Spirit, allowing ourselves to receive those messages of love, of divine inspiration, of answers. And so becoming quiet, becoming peaceful, that's our work. Spirituality is something that we practice every day, whether we realize it or not. Each and every single one of our days is indeed a sacred adventure. And every day we see signs that point to the presence of Spirit in the world around us. We may not always pay attention to them, however, they are always there. All the world's wisdom traditions teach this idea. They all experience that. So we need to learn to discover that spiritual meaning in ordinary, everyday events. We all have moments daily of connection with the sacred. Why not awaken to them and have that experience of awe? Samuel H. Miller wrote this: "In the muddled mess of this world, in the confusion and the boredom, we ought to be able to spot something, an event, a person, a memory, an act, a turning of the soul, a flash of bright wings, the surprise of sweet compassion. Somewhere we ought to be able to pick out a glory to celebrate." That's just a really nice reminder, isn't it? Even when you're having a bad day, even when things don't look like you want them to look, there's something to celebrate. There's something to be grateful for. God is in that place. God is in that situation. God is in that challenge. The spiritual dimension of life is evident everywhere, and not just in sacred places, not just in those exceptional deeds that people do or you do. Take time to recognize the presence of Spirit when it moves through your life, through the encounters with things, with places, with animals, with nature, with people. Ordinary activities are what help us move along our spiritual path. Those ordinary activities, when we begin to recognize them, become extraordinary. That is one way that Spirit engages us and becomes known to us and teaches us about this beautiful thing called life. Offering mystical moments when we sense all the inhabitants of the planet, the trees, the plants, the flowers, the babies, the the dolphins, the bugs, all of it. The land and all the creatures upon it are spiritual teachers for us. They're lessons for us. They can teach us when we listen to them, when we can take the stories that they have to tell us or the metaphors that are shared with us. Nature reminds us to be attentive, to be playful, to be open, to be reverent of who we are and what we have. I want you to think about for a second. Flowers, plants, trees, they all begin as seeds. They have a life cycle, they grow, and when their life cycle is complete, they go back to the earth, they go back to from whence they came. Isn't that exactly what happens with us? It's the very same thing. If you ever feel like you're not making progress in your spiritual life, or you feel you can't go forward, or you haven't moved forward, you can't move through this problem, you can't let it be, what I want you to do is I want you to think about clouds. Huge cloud formations form very gradually, don't they? And then, almost invisibly, they form into a different formation. That is exactly how the gradual process of transformation for us happens. The changes are so small that the overall formation looks the same for a while. And then gradually that shift happens. And you look up and the cloud is completely different than it was an hour or two or three or a day ago. And so are you. Sometimes we just don't see it for a while. Dolphins are another way that we're very similar to nature. They're very sociable creatures, as probably you already know, and they stay together in communities. They need each other. They help each other. They protect each other. Some say they even name one another, which I think is pretty fascinating. I was reading about that. They always help each other out in times of need. And they can be very vicious, protecting their own. Now, how similar is that to us? Spiders. I see spiders, personally I scream. I'm just saying. They're not my friend. However, if you've ever tried to swat a spider off of a table or whatever, if you really pay attention and look closely, you know what they do? They begin immediately and automatically to spin a web to get away. That web bears their own weight. And it comes from within. And they do that web so they can gracefully, gently, and quickly move to a different area, someplace that they feel is safer. That creature draws forth from within a reserve of substance to meet its immediate circumstances. And guess what? You have that same innate power. You absolutely do. The source of your supply, your security, is not in anything outside of you. It is all within. It is the oneness of all that is. Reading the signs of spirit in daily life allows us to see that web that connects us with other people, with the natural world, with all of life. Everything around us contains lessons and wisdom. Without being open, we miss out on that. We won't see that. We won't see that there's something more possible in our life, in nature, in one another. Being open spiritually changes our perspective on life. We see things very differently. We begin to see that the whole world is charged with sacred meaning. Chung Tzu wrote, "One has to be in the same place every day, watch the dawn from the same house, hear the same birds awake each morning to realize how inexhaustibly rich and different sameness is." Have you ever thought about that? How rich sameness is. The idea is to look at each and every day as if it were new and appreciate. Do you see the beauty in sameness? Is that something you've ever really thought about? Do you see each and every day for what it is, a new day? I just really felt drawn by that statement, because sometimes we get hung up in that, oh, it's just another day, oh, it's the same old, same old. Well, open your eyes, look at it a little bit differently, and enjoy it for what it is. To live a spiritually enriched life, we aren't required to master any texts. We aren't required to climb a mountain to reach enlightenment. We're called just to be. It's not an esoteric or mysterious practice for a few. It's for everybody. Everyday spirituality means that we're finding the sacred in all aspects of life. And the more adept we become at reading the world spiritually, the more comfortable we become, the more at peace we become. Anywhere, anytime can become the place for a sacred encounter. Judaism emphasizes taking ordinary experiences and making them holy. Islam urges believers to look for signs of God's activity in everything that's going on around them. Hinduism encourages recognizing divine manifestations in an enlightened person, a cow, a plant, or even a small object. And Buddhist masters the world over have helped practitioners regard the routines of daily life, walking, cooking, as essential spiritual practices. So you see, this is not a new idea. This is something that the wisdom traditions teach us. Spirit suffuses everything. A spiritual life is simply life, whatever and wherever, seen from the vantage point of spirit, of that higher self, whether it's waking, sleeping, dreaming, eating, recreating, walking, sitting, gardening, listening to music, playing music, whatever it is. Whatever, wherever we come alive is where spirit is touching our lives, where spirit is communicating with us and holds that divine message for us. We want to embrace the world. Know that it's full of meaning, that we can discover. We can't experience the full wonder and the mystery of the world if we are not open to it. One of the blocks to us human beings experiencing our spiritual encounters is the inability to embrace our own experiences. A whole series of habits and attitudes can prevent us from discovering the meaning of our lives. That, a lot of times, is what holds us back. The human tendency is to escape the present moment by fleeing into busyness, into boredom, into distraction. And what does that do? That feeds that shallowness, our refusal to fully understand the depths of our experiences. And by skimming the surface, we are missing out on what lies beneath that, what lies within us. Albert Schweitzer reminded us that your soul suffers if you live superficially. Your soul suffers if you live superficially. Wow. We need to live from that place that is deep within us. When we read the world spiritually, we make connections between obvious and not so obvious things. Places, events, people, situations, thoughts, feelings. Read the world for what it teaches about spirit. Lessons can be learned through analogies, through metaphors, through symbols, through stories. We gain that new understanding of our place in the universe, learning to recognize the many movements of spirit in our life on a daily basis. Read the world to see what it can show you about the meaning of life. Everything that happens to us and through us, everything we encounter is contributing to our journey. And by reading our experiences in this way, we pick up the clues as to who we are, as to what it is we need to personally work through while we're here. What issues are in front of us that we want to overcome and move through gracefully? We discover ways to get in touch with the depths of our soul so we don't have to live superficially. We want to read the world for what it is, to develop a basic respect for the intrinsic value of everything beyond its utility. And acknowledge that no matter how honed our skills are, some things that we just simply can't possess with our reason or envision through our imagination. There are mysteries in life that reflect the great mystery. One of the important aspects of practicing spirituality every single day is that it will help us become more aware and more able to focus on that positive energy within us and around us. We'll see the world differently. And by practicing presence, we will find that peace. We will be content with where we are. We will recognize that everything in life is an opportunity to open our mind, to awaken to that God self within. We'll learn to fully experience and appreciate each and every moment with gratitude, with awareness, whatever the moment may be, however that moment shows up. Spirituality simplified is simply connecting to that presence and experience of oneness with all that is. And at any time of the day, any place you are, you can bring that awareness to your body, to your thoughts, to your emotions, to your surroundings. And you want to do that non-judgmentally. And that means that you're paying attention in order to determine it, not to determine whether or not you like what's going on. Non-judgmental means accepting the way it looks, the way it is, and knowing that all is well. Bringing our attention back to the present moment helps us train our awareness to be in tune with our mental and our physical states, our habitual ways of interacting in the world. Waking up, remembering to brush your teeth. Practice bringing your mindful attention to daily activities that are very often performed mindlessly. And we all do that to some extent. This mindfulness can be practiced anytime, anywhere. Every moment where you bring your intention and your awareness is a spiritual practice. Even sorting through the mail, cooking, cleaning, working, whatever it is. So I'm going to close this morning with a quote from John Kabbat-Zin, who defines this idea very simply. Mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So I invite you to see God this week in your ordinary, everyday experiences. Watch and be amazed at how it feeds your soul and how it spurs your spiritual growth. Thank you so much for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.